All right. So we'll try to record that for them. Maybe.
Yeah.
This is going to look horrible. Oh, the good news is it's not live.
That's right.
It's not live, so we can figure it out.
And it's just your leader, so
Yeah, it's just my leader, so.
we'll understand.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a couple things as we get started. Okay, everybody got those cards? So just to review a little bit of what we talked about last time, just to make sure that we don't lose where we've been. We had an idea for a leaders event, which we'll talk more about that later, but you guys gave some ideas, so we do have that. We talked through the New Branch vision chart, which I do want to talk about later. Ideas for a New Branch survey. We're not going to talk about it tonight, but we did capture the information you guys had. And kind of what's brainstorming in my head right now is maybe with the survey, not giving them a huge survey all at one time, but giving them bits and pieces. Because the more you give them at once, it's kind of like overwhelming, and you'll get less participation, or it'll be overwhelming.
They'll speed through it at the end of the morning.
Yeah. So we'll take some of you guys' ideas. So you're going to see more of that later, but we'll have to move on. So some of the goals that we had, and I think the biggest one that we want to hit on tonight has to do with Easter. So that's really the big thing I want to talk about for tonight. We're going to be going to 2 services on Easter. And if you're a ministry lead, and especially for the kids, the First Impressions, which is now Sandy, so we've kind of conglomerated a couple ministries under Sandy. So Sandy's going to be she has the parking, the welcome, the hospitality, and probably some other things eventually, but that's the First Impressions. And also some fun event stuff that we're planning on doing will fall under her. But we'll want to have, I don't know if we have to all meet together, but for the praise team and you guys, we will need to hear what your ideas are for Easter, at least by the next time we have it, okay? So we can meet offline about that, because I know that's not a discussion for the whole group on that. Yes, sir?
2 services, is that just for Easter, or is that continuing?
That's continuing. So the idea would be is at Easter, we're planning on launching back with 2 services really strong to go, hey, the next series is going to be called Reach, and we're going to be looking at, hey, how do we reach? Each person should be able to reach out to one other person. We'll have the time to invite with postcards. How do you connect to somebody? Really pushing, let's invite people. Because there was no reason to say, hey, let's invite people when we can only have the capacity of 1 service. But if we're going to fill up 2, we're going to say, hey, guys, we have 2 services coming. So next Sunday, we're going to be punching that hard to say we're going to have 2 services. If you know anybody hasn't been here in a while, they can come, and we want to fill those services up when they come back. Unless you guys, everybody in agreement with that? Good. See, I got you while you're eating, so that makes it really.
I'm still terrified, though. I don't have enough people. So if you know anybody that wants to work in children's ministry, send them my way.
Yeah, and I think what we want to do in the Reach series is a couple things. One is we do have a shape assessment. I don't know if that's going to fit into it, but getting the whole church this year, and probably sooner this year than later, is to get everybody to go through that shape assessment. So if you got input on it, just keep letting me know. Yes, ma'am.
Just kind of an off-the-wall thing about the shape assessment. Ever since we've been looking at that and other tools for analyzing things, I keep seeing ads on TV about DNA testing and finding out your ancestry and all of this kind of stuff, because it's a big thing out there.
Okay.
Everybody I know has paid their $39 to get their kit to find out if they should be wearing a kilt or lederhosen.
That's right.
I didn't know if there's some way that we could tie spiritual DNA into this and make it more of a fun thing rather than an acronym that's like old school.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds great. I don't know if we want to do that one or not, but we can certainly look at doing that. But I think the more fun, the better, And we only called it Shape because that's what Rick Warren had, but we can certainly rename it, make it as fun as possible. But I think helping people find their niche, that's really, and being able to do that, and I think maybe starting, especially for group leaders, if we could start getting everybody that's already in group, because they're really plugged into the church. But if we could get everybody that's already plugged in the group taking those, we can really get going. And you guys can help marry them up with the ministries they need to be in. That's really what we're looking at. And when we have 2 services, it should be easier because we can say, hey, come to 1 service and serve 1 service. That's kind of what the goal would be. If that makes sense. Okay. So we'll talk more about the other classes and all the other stuff that we have, and any ideas that you guys have for goals. But right now, tonight, I think the biggest thing we want to talk about is for Easter and making sure we understand what's going to happen. So we do want to have a time of fasting and prayer, and that's going to happen starting next Sunday through March 25th. So March the 4th through March 25th. So that's 3 weeks of fasting and prayer. You know, they can pick a day, they can pick a week, they can fast something. I'd recommend if you have a small group talk about what fasting is. We have a booklet I'll send out to you so that you can go back through it, because a lot of people don't know what it is. I just had somebody this morning ask. They said, hey, they came from a Catholic background and they wanted to know about Lent. And I said, it's in my dryer. No, I'm just playing. I said I'm not liturgical, so I didn't know all the answers for them. But I think, tying into the principles is really important to say, hey, it's not just about going through the motions. A lot of them were doing it and didn't even realize why they were doing it. And I think it's super important that we say, hey, the reason we're doing this is to get close to God, not to make God do something, but to do that. And it gives us a great opportunity to teach them about prayer and fasting and all that. So this is a great season to do that. And really praying for our friends, to say the greatest mission in this church is praying to reach people. And so who are you praying for? Because if you're not praying, inviting them is kind of a moot point when we go, we're not the ones going to save them in the first place. So that's the reason for prayer. Inviting, we'll have 5 postcards like we've done in the past. They'll be mailed out on March the 18th. So that's 2 weeks before Easter. So we'll start giving those out. Yes, ma'am.
Is that 5 cards for me, and Frenchie, or can we take 5 for somebody in our group that, they want to send cards out?
It's 5 cards for every single person in the church.
Okay.
Yep.
Right,
and we'll have more than that. So what we'll probably be doing is the weeks prior to Easter, we'll give out as soon as we get them. We'll start passing them out, and then it'll have this series logo. And this year I did, just so you know, I am trying to get more about including other people besides myself. And so for the series for Easter, I'd given a little bit out to, Sandy went around and got some, just picked anybody that was here to get them to vote on which series would be the best kind of thing. And they came up with one, and I thought it was really good. It's Fearless. And it's kind of an older title, but when I looked at it, I was like, I didn't want to say that's the one that I wanted, but it really was in a way, because it taps on what I think is the biggest thing that we have, is that fear is really behind a lot of what we have in life. Insecurities that I see. People are afraid to step out, and so we're going to unpack the issue of fear. And I think starting on Easter, the first message is going to be about fear, afraid of the dark. And, talking about Jesus on the cross in the pitch black, that he paid all of that price, but when he rose from the dead, he brought life back, First thing God did was what? He said, let there be light, And so I think he brought spiritual light back, and we're going to talk more about that. But anyway, I just want to give you an idea of where we're going for the Easter series. So that's going to be called Fearless. And on Easter Sunday, 2 services, 9:30 and 11. We'll probably have some fun stuff for kids, all the things that we do on Easter. And then probably the big thing is going to be the follow-up. So the other thing I'd like to say is, I know most of you guys are still, I'm always done eating maybe, is if you can look at this vision chart, I want to come back to that as much as we can. So it's probably the last page that you have. And the part that I wanted you to focus on is really this part, that it goes from the invite to the service, to the pastor's breakfast, to community group. I'm not so concerned with, hey, all of our ministries in the church, like some people were kind of concerned to say, hey, I don't see my ministry over here. You're in there, you just don't know it. We're conglomerating them, and we just couldn't fit them all in. But everything supports focusing that person to going, hey, here's a person that's disconnected and all alone, and we want to help them become a fully functional follower of Jesus Christ. Moving an unconnected person to being a devoted, fully functional follower of Jesus Christ, which means now they're connected to the body. And the 2 things that I think would make that happen are community group, because now you're in a group of people that are going to help get you there. And the second thing is knowing what your gifting is and where you serve. And I think if we get people there, I know there's a whole bunch of other things we can do with them, but that to me is the essence of what this church needs to be about. Now that's my opinion. So before I put this out for public consumption, take a look at it. Anybody have anything to add to that? Am I missing something that isn't right there. Is that, or is everybody tracking that that's the right place to go? Cool. So, good. I'm glad, because otherwise, or I'm full. I just don't want to talk about it. I got you. And so, but just keep looking at that, and we can start filling it out. And I'm sure we're going to fill that diagram out more and more. But I want to keep it simple because, you know, when we go through this next series, I'll probably bring this diagram up in a smaller form so people understand what are we trying to do as a church. Because it's not just about getting a crowd. This is super important as we approach Easter. If it's just about the flash in the pan Easter service, I don't think we want to do that. Because we can have a huge, I don't know if you've ever done this, and we've done this here, huge crowd on Easter, and you go right back to the same amount of attendance this Sunday. More than that, same problem, same people we see at Easter, they come for about 6 weeks, don't see them again for a couple months, same problems in their lives, nothing's changing. And we've got to get them to go, until you get into this funnel, we got to come up with a different term for that, right? Hop in my funnel, right? I'm going to make sausage out of you. I don't know. But you get the picture is that, hey, we got to get you into this funnel to say, hey, we got to get you connected. And the scariest thing for most of the people, honestly, has been going to community group. If you ask anybody, the scariest thing in the world for them isn't once they get there, but getting them there. I've had more people say I've sat in the parking lot, waited, I got sick to my stomach, I left. A lot of people struggle with that. And so we have to figure out, hey, how do we get them into community groups?
John, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I may have asked it when we were involved.
Okay.
Is when we throw these people down the funnel.
Yeah, throw them down the funnel. I like that. Yeah.
Do they have to follow this path to get to the ultimate destination of serving and community?
No.
Okay.
Nope. You can take any course you want. So I definitely don't want to make this seem like this is a force-fitted, this is, you know, for those of you that are government, I think we got a lot of you guys. Okay, so when you guys see that, this is not the formula to say, hey, number one, this is what they do. Number two, this is what they do. What we want to say is, I don't care how we get you to community group. This is the format that normally happens. But they don't have to come to pastor's breakfast to get the community group. If they come in the first day, if they want to come to your group, but the goal of this church is to get them into a group because why? Because if we get them in the group, they can start applying God's principles. If they're not in group, then all they have is rows and they got knowledge and they start to try to apply these principles by themselves. And if there's anything that I've learned is this, is that you cannot apply these principles by yourself. And if you don't, then here's what it's going to be. We'll be a church of policies and procedures. And I don't know if you've ever been part of that, but it's not fun. I mean, what will happen is then we're going to practice church discipline, and it'll be like this. Well, the rule book says clean up and you can come back. The rule book says you can do this. But in the context of a small group, somebody that's not married and they're living together, they can slowly start to make those changes. Somebody that's dealing with these issues, they can have the dialogue. Somebody that's dealing with being transgender. Believe it or not, we've had somebody that came to the church that was. And we don't highlight it, but we want to make sure you guys know about it because we go, hey, how does that work? In the course of a relationship, they're able to dialogue about the real problems this person's having, applying God's principles very slowly through conversation. But I really believe if you try to apply God's principles without conversation, but just policy, you're going to turn them off, you're going to hurt them, and it's not going to accomplish what we think it will. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and I say all that, and I know I'm getting kind of preachy, so I'm going to stop in just a second. But I want to make sure that we grasp it because that's where we want to start leading people to when it comes to this. Is to go, if we can get people in group, our church is going to grow, and that leads us to what the real dialogue is for tonight. So the real dialogue is, how do we expand our small group network? Okay, we're going to do the things for Easter. We'll do the fun event, and then we got to figure out, hey, for tonight, we want to focus a lot on the small group thing. Before we go there, though, there's one other thing, and that is fun can help sometimes, okay? And one thing our church kind of got away from for a while is we didn't have a lot of fun events, and it's because we were focused on a lot of negative things that were happening, and we had to deal with those. And now we want to go, everybody, and you guys have been talking about, we would like to do more fun, connecting events together. Now, we had a great one the other night with Tim Hawkins, so those of you that went, it was awesome. If you couldn't go, I understand. But but being able to do those kinds of things together and watching, I mean, I'll be honest, as a pastor, everybody else was laughing, and I was kind of crying a little bit in the back. I didn't want to let anybody see me because I was like, look at all of our people laughing. And some of these people hadn't laughed in a while, you know? So it was pretty awesome. And so we want to have more of that. So the person that's going to take care of all of that, and she's got all the answers, is Sandy Carr. And so,
Lord have mercy.
so Sandy's going to come, and so she's going to tell you about an event we got coming up, and then she's also going to tell you about getting some input on an event that we want to do.
All right, no pressure there. Thank you, Pastor John. Yeah. What I want to tell you about first is, as y'all know, at our last leaders meeting, John asked y'all to put together some ideas of events. So we put that list together. Then he also went to the congregation and said, hey, you know, what do you want to do fun? What sounds good? So we've worked on those. So I have this nice list of everything that everybody's interested in. So what I did, well, the first thing that we did, Pastor John, our meeting about the flow chart and all the wonderful things that are being, what was his terminology? Slumped under, I can't remember how clumped together under first impressions, but that are coming to me. So I'm very excited no matter what he says about these items. But anyway, with that, with events, it is going to be a learning process for me on how they've been done, working with Kathy and so forth on, you know, making sure the logistics are done. But he also said to me that he wanted an event before Easter. So I went to work on that. We got some ideas. So we are going to do an event on March 17th here at the church in the evening. I'm not going to say times and everything because I got with the team that's going to put that together this morning, and they're going to start rolling with it, and we're going to, you know, finalize everything via email because of our timing. But we're going to do kind of like a game night. Okay, we want something, and that was one of the things that was put out there on this list. But as John also just said, the events we do, we also want somewhat interacting. We don't want to have, you know, the same groups always hanging out. We want to expand. We want, you know, our leaders, our community group leaders, those that have that ability to reach out, to mingle with other people and help people meet other people and get connected. So we're going to do an event. It's going to be, like I said, a game night. You'll hear more about it, but that's what the first one we're going to start with before Easter. With that said, what we want to do tonight, I'm going to tape something up here in just a minute. You have multicolored index cards in front of you. We're going to go over a list. I listed about 6 or 7 items from what the leaders had suggested and what the church had suggested. What I'm going to want you to do on the Connect cards, and I want you to put them in order 1 through 4, as your 1 being the thing you think is the best thing in the world we should do, down to number 4 in your order of importance or what you like. And our goal is to possibly have a fun event once a month. Now, obviously in the summer we may take a couple months off, like we usually do with other things. So we're going to get that idea so that when an event comes up, y'all aren't going, oh, we didn't want to do that. You know, you've put input in it. Like John said, we don't want to be the ones making all the decisions. So let's look at, and hopefully y'all can see. If I have to move something, you tell me, and I will get out of the way.
You want me to hold it up?
No, I can hold it up. I can hold it up.
I can hold it up.
I'm good. I can be Vanna too.
I'll be Vanna and you be, what's his name?
Would you like to be Vanna? No, Kathy wants to be Vanna. Kathy, do you want to come join me and be Vanna?
I'll be Vanna.
Come be Vanna.
She just wanted to get out of writing all these cards.
That's right. No, she still has to write on the cards. Okay, these have random orders, but to explain them, we had someone mention potluck picnic at the park, and that's the key that I want everybody to realize is at the park. I don't know if you remember way back when, we went to a park over here off 17, had a cookout. We also did a baptism actually there. But again, so a potluck picnic at the park. We can set up games. We can expand that however we want it to be. Bowling. Numerous people did bowling. We know as leaders we did that. You know, we can work with that. We can set up teams. We can rotate, you know, get some different people hanging out and doing things. The Warren's Farm came up. They really like the activities. We can have activities for all ages. You know, we're not excluding anybody. Of course, I'll have to go sweet talk the Warrens again. But that was another one that people mentioned they really liked. I kind of combined these two because they mentioned a chili cook-off, and they mentioned, they called it a butt-off. But I said the Boston butt-off. So I kind of put those together, one or the other. But we could do something like that again. Again, we can choose venues. We can have it at the church, or we can have it at another location. Music night, a praise and worship. There's two ways to look at this. We can do it where worship team is giving us praise and worship. Or I remember way back when we almost did kind of like a talent night. And we had people come and do praise and worship songs and do different things. So here they are, someone new, interacting. Maybe we can have our worship here and they can scout talent. So that's another option. Covered dish, bring your favorite meal. And they did mention this for a Sunday after church here, you know, at the premises. But the key of bring your favorite meal. So you bring a meal, everybody brings a meal, we put it together, and not just maybe one item. And then we talked about the baseball game, and this was from our leaders mainly, and the fact that you can do the baseball game at the Tides, and you can get the cookout center, the little picnic center to the side. You get seats, you go over, you picnic for an hour or so, then you come back, and all that's with the game. So those are multiple items, but I want your top 4.
Can you combine 2 of those?
No.
I was thinking you could do
Go ahead, I'm
Can you put the butt and the chili
cook-off.
together?
That's right, no.
Work out.
I'm sorry, what?
The covered dish and the chili cook-off, I mean, I think combined.
That's 2 of your choices.
He said that's 2 of your choices. Let me, and you all help me understand. When I look at that, the chili cook-off is going to put work on those that want to do the chili cook-off. And the others are just kind of hanging out. The covered dish, you've got everybody involved.
Okay.
So you can look at it. Now we could drop into this on the chili cook-off day. Maybe also have somebody bring desserts, or maybe have a dessert cook-off or whatever, so that you've got 2 items, and that might bring the ladies in on something. So you know you can expand on something, but for now, unless we disagree, let's try to keep them the way they are.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Pat Sajak.
That's right, Pat Sajak.
It's not Pat, it's Pat Sajak.
Okay, we're just using one.
Yeah, just use one card and put 1 through 4. Just use one card. I'm sorry. Put 1 through 4 on your card, and then I'll bring those together and make a list for Pastor John and others of us to go through. You only need one. It's not color coordinated. I apologize. It is one card. One card. All 4 choices on one card. 1 through 4. 1 being your number 1 choice.
Make it a little dark.
You're in.
Some of us.
That's his engineering coming in. Yes, ma'am.
Here in the back.
Didn't you say something about a talent show or something?
Well, what I said is on the music night,
Oh,
we had the 2 options because they said praise and worship. So I was saying you could have our praise team give us worship, or we could turn it more into like a talent night and having.
Because I got some people in my group that love to.
So if you choose music, yeah, there you
Got some
go.
characters there.
Now, I bet. So if you choose music night, you can put in parentheses that you
Talent
prefer
show.
the talent
A
show.
little skit. or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, the talent show versus the praise or whatever. So then we'll know what you're choosing on that.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
karaoke.
I know, he mentioned karaoke. Yeah. But so yeah, that music night can be any aspect of that.
I love doing that.
But do you?
He's had some good moments though. He's had some golden buzzer.
Alright, it's not a group thing.
Hey, the sign's moving. I gotta make sure I spell stuff.
You're doing a fine job up there.
Thank you very much. See,
I'm not done yet,
oh,
though. Hold on, Ben.
Now take it to the
Yeah, now we can tape it if you don't want to stand there and hold it.
Covered dish, is that gonna be big bust the butt? That too.
That's true, you can.
this
Yes.
These activities, are we focusing more on our church members so we can have fun, or are we focusing on people.
Okay. Pastor John, we have a question.
Okay.
When we are talking about these events, are we focusing strictly on our church members or also as a outreach and bringing other people
Yeah,
in?
for this one, we would like to focus some outreach, like the next event, the game night, that's more internally, because we haven't done a big outreach. But because we're getting ready to do Easter, this is gonna be tied for after Easter. So we want something that we can invite other people to.
Okay. I mean, we want to build both aspects. We want to get those that are coming to connect, so maybe like the covered dish would be more related to those. If they bring a friend that Sunday, they can stay for lunch. But we also want to have items that we are reaching out. I mean, we had, and I went through, I mean, we had a lot of items. We had, you know, the Christian concert, just like we did with the Tim Hawkins. We had family campfire singing. So we had a lot of other events that were bigger that we can still choose from. But these we wanted to pick out. I was directed more of a connection. Oh, we have a camera right here. See right there.
See right there?
There it is.
Oh, you can't get so close because you can't see it.
We'll let them know.
You can't see it.
I can see it closer. Oh, you can't see it?
Well, I did.
No.
I did read every one of them.
Come to your left. I can see it from here.
No,
Give
but
a
you
flag
can't
off
hardly
her
make out the
name.
words on the thing.
All right. So did you have a question?
Hey,
Tippy,
James.
Tippy, did you have a question?
Oh, the meal, is it like a casserole or is it considered like bringing the turkey, the dressing, the ham?
It's hard
you
to
know?
see the
And ultimately, that depends on how we present it. If we say behind it, you know, bring your favorite meal, then it still is up to the person's interpretation.
Right.
So whether their meal is one casserole dish or if their meal is a salad, a meat, a vegetable, and a dessert, you know, that's going to be that person's perceptive anyway.
mine is a gallon of sweet tea.
Okay,
Exactly.
Julie wrote for
All right.
Hey,
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hey, come do your list.
That's right. I know. I look for your handwriting. All right. I'm gonna move this to the side so when Pastor John gets up here, y'all can see.
If you're over there.
I did a 15-minute video.
I just like, it would have
All right.
been.
Everybody here. You can't change your answer because your wife came back.
Just gave me a good idea.
Thank you, Carol.
Is it actually?
Okay.
hey, I can't see the board you're standing from.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I counted everybody here.
Hey Kathy, you can just watch the video later to get the list.
Put your piece of paper in front of that TV.
Man, they just. I just messed them all up here.
Whoop, I'm sorry. Now they're gonna give it back to me.
I'm not sure what we're doing there, but that was really obnoxious. Oh, did everybody do it?
No,
Okay.
Kathy's. I
still
think
waiting
Kathy.
on one person, I think.
Good night.
I was working.
You say you like it to be on time, and then stuff like that.
Well, they never did get back from me. They kept telling me that they were going to do it.
Okay, so now I want to shift gears just for a minute, and we'll talk about small group, if that's okay. So we got some small group leaders here, and some people that are not small group leaders. That's okay. And what I want to do is if you look at this page right here, this is actually in the second page. It's only the other page we haven't looked at yet. It actually is right out of the handbook for group leader training. And maybe you hadn't been through that in a long time. But a big piece of small group, and that's kind of what I want us to discuss tonight, has to do with empowering people in the group. So if that makes sense to everybody. So group's not just about saying, hey, here, come to a class Now, we do have one group that is a class, which is Charles Chappell's. He's got special privilege, and we've kind of been talking about maybe some ways to even revamp that. And Charles will talk more about that later in the future to say maybe there's some ways that we can add some in-depth studies, which are going to be super helpful in understanding the messages and stuff like that. But in regular groups themselves, the idea would be is that it doesn't matter whether you're going through our messages or whatever, but the idea would be is that people are coming there to be part, not just to be served. And this is super, super important. And so what I'd like us to talk about is a couple of different things. One is, how can we do better, or maybe you can give some examples of how great your group does with this, and then what are some ideas that we can do to go, maybe you can get some ideas from group leaders. How do you empower your people? You know, do you give out responsibilities? What kind of things do you do that empowers people? Or do you find that you're having to do it all yourself? And so maybe just spend just a few minutes talking about that.